Howdy, and welcome to the Growing the Next Version of You show. My name is Mike Rochelle. I'm a strategic influencer who collects meaningful relationships, actionable philosophies, and methods to help people and organizations refine their purpose for results growth. Every week, I chat with thought leaders as we explore leadership as a mind, body, and spirit, yes, an inside-out experience that helps us grow and make the world a better place. Join me. Well, howdy, y'all. This is Mike Rochelle, and I'm here with the fabulous Fanny Dunagan. I always throw the fabulous in because I know how good you are. So it's really awesome to sit down with you and to have a conversation about growing the next version of you. So thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I am. It's going to be fun.
It is. It is. It's a beautiful day outside, but here we are together. Mm-hmm. So, folks, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce Fanny. I'll read her bio. And then I think as important or more important to me, at least, is our history together of the last 3 or 4 years. She'll have an opportunity to do a personal introduction, and I'll ask you some questions to go a little deeper with that too. And then our topic of interest we'll talk about as we get there. We're really looking at everything in this show from a servant leadership, mind, body, spirit perspective. And then we'll talk about any other topics that you have on your mind. I'll ask you about your influencers, tell you who mine are, and then we'll talk about how the guests can keep in touch with you.
Absolutely.
So let's get going.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to read your bio. So Fanny Dunagan is the founder and content strategist of Pathlinks, a consulting firm that helps business owners, coaches, and consultants create digital content, video strategies, and content plans. She trains and empowers individuals and leadership teams to take charge of their personal and business branding, create value for others, and build an engaging community around their products, services, and values. Wow, that's awesome. I like that. Before starting her own company, Fanny had a corporate career in change management, communications, and training for technology projects in the aerospace and defense industry. As a senior consultant at Arthur Andersen Business Consulting and HCL Technologies. She served Fortune 500 clients such as Singapore Airlines, the United Technologies Corporation Aerospace Systems, formerly Goodrich Corporation. Hadn't heard of Goodrich in a long time.
Right? Yeah.
And
old.
Well, I'm not going there. You're younger than I am. As well as the Republic of Singapore Navy. I'm sure there are some stories there. Mm-hmm. She paused her career, her corporate career, to stay at-home mom to her 2 children, and subsequently became an entrepreneur, helping small, medium, and enterprise-level companies with employer and personal branding and content and video marketing. She's spoken about branding and videos at a variety of marketing and technology associations, as well as the headquarters of Toyota and Whole Foods. She also volunteers her time speaking at colleges, career fairs, and job search networking events to serve those in career transition. So that's the formal bio.
It's a mouthful. Huh?
It is. It's incredible.
Maybe I should cut it down.
So the cool thing about this is just getting to learn what my good friends have done at a deeper level than before. So I learned some things when I got your bio, and I'm looking forward to doing that today in our conversation. Fanny and I've probably known each other for about 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we met through Chuck Vanderweel.
That's
our
right.
Mutual friend.
That's right. And that was at a BT&G meeting, I think?
No, he and I met at Geek Meet,
okay,
which is another technology networking event.
Okay.
And then from there, he told me about ABTP and brought me in to speak at BT&G.
Okay, yeah.
And then that was when we did our first promo video.
Yeah, that was when you brought me into the video world, kicking and screaming.
I dragged you in.
Yeah, exactly. Since then, I've taken a class of yours. I'm working on the online class right now. And let's see, you were on the board of ABTP for 2 years.
2 years.
Still on the advisory board.
And now I help ABTP with their live streaming.
That's right. That's right. And Paul, our producer here, actually does audio with you there. Yeah. So we're like just
big family.
Exactly. And the cool thing about it is that when you learn something, you usually tell me about it. And whenever I learn something, as small as it might be, I share that. We've always had this issue at ABTP meetings where the iPads or the iPhones that we're using for the back cameras have sound. Yeah. So Paul actually figured out if you put a headphones on the device,
that's genius, Paul,
and then cover the things up, it doesn't make any sound.
I love it. It's a cool hack.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've looked for hours on Apple. If anybody knows how to turn the speaker off on an iPhone or iPad, please text us below. Yeah. Yes. Well, or anytime. Yeah. I mean, it does it on these recordings as well. Man. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. So we've had some good times enjoying learning how to broadcast live and how to have speakers that are remote speak at the same time as having people live in person be able to speak. And that's the big problem that I think it's still unsolved in the.
But it shows the world we're in now.
Exactly.
Right? Like we really do live in a digital world.
Well, we had started fortunately before COVID, but the whole time we were having COVID, we did everything remotely, obviously. Yeah. So that kind of refined the broadcast there. So we have a neat experience together over the last couple of years.
I hope you're enjoying the show. My name is Fanny Dunagan, and I'm a LinkedIn content strategist. What I do is I help build your brand, your content on LinkedIn so that you can become a thought leader and trusted advisor in your industry. We create everything from videos to carousels to live stream shows, all to showcase you and your brand so that people hire you for your thought leadership, as well as to set you up as a trusted advisor in your industry. So let's connect on LinkedIn. My name is Fanny Dunagan, and I'll see you online.
But I am fascinated with you and to know more about you and your background. So why don't you walk us through your bio, kind of, as I say, the speeds and feeds of your life. What made you, and why do you do what you do?
I think certain things made me me. I mean, born in China, immigrated to Canada when I was 6. So I kind of came from having to learn English as a second language and really focus on that. And growing up in an Asian family, it's very much like you either be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And I chose engineering because it's like math and science was like the thing.
Okay.
Heaven forbid should I do something creative like art or something creative.
And what do you end up doing?
Yeah. See, we all come back to it, folks.
Come back to our passion.
We do. Yeah. I think so. And so, spent a whole big portion of my 20s in engineering and doing technical kind of jobs. And I was a transport planner. I got to go to Singapore and spent 5 years there and work on the rail lines there and doing planning for their subway stations. And then that's when I started to kind of get antsy. I think the side of me that was a people person, the side of me that had creativity in me, wanted to get out of engineering and Excel sheets. And so I started transitioning. I thought I would try my hand at business consulting. And over the span of 9 months, I kind of got my act together, networked a lot, and ended up at Arthur Andersen doing change management.
Very cool.
And that's when I kind of fell into the world of SAP. And
so it goes back that far.
It does,
awesome.
Yeah. Singapore Airlines was putting in SAP, and so Arthur Andersen was hired to do change management and training for them. And so that was kind of like my first step into the aerospace and defense industry and SAP. But it was so cool. I still remember walking. You get to work at the terminal. So every day I got to go to the Singapore Airlines terminal, walk past the hangars where they were maintaining the planes, and like just fell in love with that whole aerospace and defense industry. And fast forward, met my husband there. The Canadian and the American met in Singapore.
Was he a consultant as well with Anderson?
Yeah, he's an SAP consultant for another firm.
Okay.
And then eventually we moved back to US and did more SAP consulting from there. And then that's when I kind of like, the biological clock started ticking and wanted to have babies. And I did, but consulting was like 100% travel. Right. Leave Monday, come home Thursdays. And from there, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just take a pause. It was a huge challenge to go from like going to clients every week to like sitting at home nursing.
Right.
But it was great.
A much more demanding client though from your children.
Oh my gosh,
right?
Yes. They don't listen to reason. Why are you crying?
Yeah.
But it was great. I mean, it was a good phase of my life. But I got antsy after 5 years, and along the way, I just started supporting my old technology firm with their recruitment, resourcing, training, and but I felt kind of lost, actually. I was like, I'm not going to go back to consulting. What am I going to do? And that's when I kind of like stopped everything and started volunteering at a local outreach center in Grapevine here, and helped them with their training programs, ESL programs, GED programs.
Okay.
And out of that, we started organizing job fairs. And that's when I kind of fell and stumbled into this world of video marketing and content marketing on Facebook and LinkedIn to promote these job fairs.
So what year is this?
This was 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. And through a whole variety of networks and connections, I just formed a business out of it, because people started asking me to help them with their brand on LinkedIn, to help them get on video, marketing, all that. And so I organically fell into content marketing and video marketing, and then formed my company Pathlinks. And fast forward to now, I'm helping a whole variety of different business owners, coaches, consultants build their brand on LinkedIn.
So I think it was it 2019 or 2018 when you spoke at the Association for Business Technology Professionals?
Yeah.
I think it was 2018.
Yes.
Yeah, 2018.
Yes.
So do you remember what the topic was back then?
It was probably how to build your brand?
I think it was content. I think it was content focused.
Yeah, or how to build your brand through content.
Maybe that was it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fanny, I think first of all, a lot of people knew her, so we had a record attendance at that ABTP meeting. But then also, all the comments were back to, oh man, this is fabulous content for us, right? Because it was still, even though it had been around for a while, just a couple of years, most people hadn't really thought about doing any kind of video. No. It was still just long form articles and things like that, which is what I started doing back, when LinkedIn started. But I figure out all along the way that that's too much, right? Nobody reads to the bottom of one of those big articles.
It was also around that time that LinkedIn started pushing video a lot.
Okay.
And so you saw this huge rise of video content creators on LinkedIn.
Right.
And anytime somebody posted a video, the LinkedIn algorithm would push it out.
Right.
So it was this amazing organic growth if you hopped on the video bandwagon.
Okay.
And so that's why I was like, you got to go. You got to, step into the foreground and get those recordings done. And that's why I was like pushing it, because LinkedIn had this huge organic growth if you're going to do video.
Right.
And people connect with you more when they see you on video.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even if you're not looking at them directly, you can still get eye contact.
Right.
You feel their energy, you see their body language.
Yeah.
And short of meeting somebody in person, you're never going to get that kind of connection anywhere else digitally.
Right.
And so it's very powerful. And even now, even though the LinkedIn algorithm doesn't favor video as much, it will still convert people like no other format. And so I just believed in it. And I realized over time I talk better than I write. So
so it's easier to
just let me ramble on.
Let it happen.
Yeah.
I'm sort of like that too.
Yeah.
So so we're still in the introductions phase of this conversation. Let me go back just a little bit. And because I'm focused on body, mind, and spirit, can I go back to your philosophical roots and what your thoughts are regarding why you're here, why I'm here, why anybody's here, and maybe you can tie that into purpose, because I think that's a big part of your message.
I think throughout this content creation journey, because there's something about when you get on video, at the beginning we, whatever, are a lot more robotic, and we think we have to say things a certain way. And I think that also comes from like the corporate training, right? Like, got to be buttoned up, got to say things very proper, and like, and you got to be perfect. But throughout this content creation journey, you can't fake it in front of the camera.
Right.
The audience always knows. The audience can always sense it when you're not authentic. And so if you want to engage them, you almost have to, I had to like force myself to like really find my truth or find what I really believed in.
Right.
So I actually feel like content creation takes you to finding yourself and finding your voice.
Right.
And tying that to purpose, I believe now more and more our purpose in life is to find our voice and share it with others.
Yeah.
And it can be share it with 1 or to 1 million and everything in between. But whatever that gift is, whatever our message is, I think it's up to us to share that with others.
Right.
And that's kind of what I've discovered along the way with content creation.
So have you given much thought to what you think your purpose is? And
yes, actually, I think my purpose is to help others find their voice.
Okay.
I love asking questions. I'm naturally curious about people, whether they're an airport attendant in baggage claim, to a technology leader, to somebody that I sat beside on a plane, or somebody I'm talking to on the street. I'm just fascinated about what people do and what they're passionate about. And so I love asking questions. And so I feel like that kind of lends itself to me digging out people's gifts and messages. And then I just happen to use tools like cameras and videos to get them out there and for others to hear them.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So if you think about, you've had all these experiences. If you went back to that younger self that was just graduating from your engineering degree, what do you think you would have done differently, or would you have done anything differently?
Oh, I think I would listen to my inner voice more. I would have been less scared to do things, or to do it scared. Like, that's one of my hashtags, do it scared, right? Yeah. Like, I was I was so afraid to make a mistake. And I felt like everything had to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
especially in engineering,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, so I never tried anything out of the box.
Mm.
I was afraid to try things out of the box. I didn't really speak up much at work. I just stayed quiet and in my lane.
Mm.
And
So was any of that cultural at the time?
absolutely.
Because there are a couple of different things that come to mind for me, right? Female in a men's world, kind of a thing, right? I think you can speak to that in volumes.
Yeah.
And then also your lineage,
yeah.
right? And and the culture there is
Absolutely.
to pretty much
Yeah,
keep
be
your opinion to
subservient,
yourself.
respect my elders,
Yeah.
respect those in power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've learned over the years, like, there is a balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can still respect you,
right,
and say, I disagree, Mike.
right.
I think this is how I feel.
Yeah, and you do that quite often. It's not bad. I'm not. I mean, I enjoy the banter, right?
Yeah.
Whenever that happens.
But I think I've learned that the balance is to do it not with anger,
Yeah,
but to do it from your heart.
yeah,
Right? Like, I totally respect what you just said.
yeah,
But this is how I feel.
yeah.
But we can still be friends. Like, we've had tons of conversations like this.
Oh, I
right?
know.
Like,
I know.
we disagree on multiple things, but at the same time, we're great friends. And I think we can be both.
Well, I think that's the beauty of a mature relationship, right? Is the ability to hold different positions on any topic, whatever that topic may be,
Yeah.
but appreciate that the other person has their reasons.
Yeah.
And frankly, from my perspective, I think what the world needs now is for more of us to do that, to be able to say, this is the way that I see the world,
Yes.
and to be able to articulate it, but more importantly, to be able to articulate the other person's perspective back to them, so that they can understand that you understand.
And listen.
And exactly. And then when you do that, then there's a way to move forward, very much unlike what's happening in the political sphere and culture in general.
Yeah,
right?
It really does.
Yeah. So that's a powerful thing to do.
Absolutely.
And I see you do that quite often. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So younger self, now you're talking to yourself when you're in business consulting.
Yes.
So give me a little bit. What is the difference between being an engineer and being a consultant? Do you recall the...
Being an engineer, you can almost hide behind your computer and get your work done and do it well, and you'll be okay.
Mm.
Being a consultant, you have to talk.
Right.
And even when you're uncomfortable, even when you don't know the answer,
which is often,
even when you're thinking on your feet, right? Like, and so it's like you're thrust into conversations that you have no idea how it's going to turn out. And I still remember little things like I would like watch the news more just so I could like know current events.
Sure.
Just so that, like, because when you're a consultant, you're traveling also. So you're having dinners with clients, you're having dinners with your peers, you have hallway conversations. And like, rather than trying to fumble to figure out what
Wall
to talk
Street Journal,
about,
Financial Times,
right? You're like,
Economist.
Yeah, you just kind of pick something out of the air and like, hey, have you read that book?
Yeah.
Oh, I noticed on your bookshelf you have that Leading Change book, Mike.
Right.
I came from change management. Why are you interested in that?
Right.
And then suddenly we're off. Like, I find that like we just need little like conversation starters.
Right.
And I found that if nothing else, consulting taught me how to talk and have conversations.
So I'm interested. I've never, frankly, I didn't remember if I ever knew that you were with Anderson. So I had a good friend that was with Arthur Anderson when the whole blow up happened.
Yes.
Were you there still, or were you already gone?
I was there for 1 year.
Okay.
And then I actually resigned because I was going to go back to Canada and to be with my then boyfriend, soon to be husband.
Okay.
And literally like a month later, Enron happened. And I was like, oh my God.
For those in our audience and for the youngers for sure, and what is just the general situation that happened there?
Well, I think Arthur Andersen was Enron, Enron's accounting firm. And Enron is like a big energy company, I believe, right? At the time. Yeah, out of Houston. And I think there was some kind of, I don't know, legal stuff that happened. I don't know any details. I don't remember. That was actually back in 2001. Okay.
Yeah.
2001. And so it actually took apart all of Arthur Andersen. Arthur Andersen, which used to be one of the big 5 accounting firms, got dismantled all over the world.
Yep.
And then the remaining big 4 just bought them over. And I remember the Singapore office got taken over, I think, by Bearing Point at the time. And so, yeah, suddenly this huge consulting firm was gone. Yeah. And at that time, I mean, I don't know, luck, the universe, whatever you call it.
You dodged that bullet.
Yeah. And I came back to the U.S. and joined HCL at that time.
Okay.
But yeah, that was crazy. Thank you for watching the show. I wanted to share a little bit about Pathlinks. Pathlinks is a digital marketing agency where we create digital content for LinkedIn, build LinkedIn brand, as well as content and live streams, especially for technology consulting firms. We love to highlight your people and your consultants and humanize your brand and bring out those special interest human stories. So hope you'll check out Pathlinks, PATHLYNKS.com. But consulting was like, I still remember like the first 2 months, like just thinking I made a huge mistake because it was so darn hard.
Yeah.
Were you a consultant for
I
a while?
was, yeah. I did. I was
consultant?
from 1999 to 2003 with eLoyalty,
Okay.
which was a CRM strategy firm.
And what point in your career were you?
I'd already been a divisional CIO, and I moved into consulting because I wanted more challenges.
So it was later on. You were already an expert.
So I already had a good experience with doing corporate mergers and things like that.
Got it.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but I remember that first 2 months as the same thing because
you came in as an expert.
Yeah, but even as an expert, it's a totally different world.
It is.
Than every workaday world.
I came in 3 years after university into consulting, and I'm like, I still remember my first day. Usually the first day you're like, oh, I'm in the honeymoon phase, right? I'm just going to go to onboarding, pick a few paperwork, maybe learn some stuff, and I should be done, right? First day. And at 5 p.m. on my first day, we get called into the director's office, and they started talking about this PowerPoint that needed updating. And of course it fell to the junior person. Right. And so I was there from 5 to 10, fixing a PowerPoint and tweaking slides for this presentation on my very first day. Sure. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Was that PowerPoint, or were you still on Harvard Graphics at that time?
It was PowerPoint.
It was PowerPoint.
Yes.
Then.
Yes. So I was like, oh my gosh, so many. Yeah, that it still like gives me PTSD, I think. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that are still in consulting. I think it's a kinder, gentler world than it used to be in general, just because they're competing for the same resources that companies are.
And granted, like I support consulting firms now. Sure. And it's almost like you have to get over that initial pain, I guess you call it. Because now I love it. I thrive on it. I love the process-oriented nature of it, the deliverables-oriented nature of it, and just picking apart a problem. Sure. And then solving it. Yeah. Right.
And you get lots of variety, right? Because you have different clients in different industries and different sizes. And
what was your favorite part of being in consulting?
That was mine. It was my favorite part was to be able to go into companies like Dow Chemical, understand the background of what it was, what the chemical industry was about, help them identify, problems in their sales administration globally, go around the world interviewing all their salespeople and their sales leaders, and then come back and provide them with a value of what their next steps would be. At that point, it was with Siebel Systems, the CRM of the day. But it was powerful to be able to do that. And lots of cultural experiences, right? Because that particular client had operations in Spain and Germany that I visited, the UK, and then obviously back here in North America. For whatever reason, we didn't do Asia. That's still on my bucket list to get over there. We're doing work. The nice thing about consulting too is that you typically spend quite a bit of time wherever you are, right?
Yes.
And you get to know the culture and the people. And I love cultural differences. My mother's German, my wife is Puerto Rican, so we have a milieu in our own home, right? Not unlike you. And then so you have all the differences of culture and the beauty of how people do things differently. And they do from country to country.
It's thrilling.
Yeah, so you have to understand that and be able to be flexible with that. At the same time, deliver a deliverable. Which was fun. Yeah,
it's almost like you become almost like an adrenaline junkie for a while because you're forced to learn something really fast, pick it up, and solve it all at the same time.
I love the way you say that. So you think of people who are Ironmen runners or Iron women. I don't know if that's a term, but there are competitors on both sides. But the point is, the Iron Man, that whole thing is a tremendous adrenaline fix for those that do it.
For the mind.
For anybody that does skydiving or scuba diving or something, there's adrenaline push to all that kind of stuff. And there is in consulting too.
There is.
Most definitely.
You walk in like not knowing.
Right.
And you got to immediately hit the ground running.
That's right.
Not knowing.
That's right.
And like be uncomfortable with it.
Well, the other thing that I enjoyed about consulting, still do, is the ability to take lessons that were learned by other industries and apply them to a new lesson, because there's nothing more powerful than to take a truth that is true in, engineering. Jacobs Engineering is one place that I worked. And we implemented things that I'd learned in the telecom industry, So things like that are fun because it's new to the people that you're talking to, but it's proven in other industries. So you can actually help them to leapfrog. And that's a great feeling.
It is. And I feel the exact same way. And I think it's because you and I have talked about this. Our number one strength is connectedness. And so we love like seeing how everything fits together and like pulling things together and then like finding those commonalities. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Paul has connectedness, and Arlene up in her office upstairs does as well.
There you go.
So we have 3 out of our family of 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to get my husband to do
What are your other strengths? Do you recall?
It was connectedness, relator, includer, responsibility, and positivity.
I can see all of those.
Yeah, it's like
most definitely
very relationship oriented, but then that responsibility part of me is like, I have to do what I say. Right. To the point where like now I'm like, I'm not going to agree to anything.
You don't sign up for anything.
Until I know I can deliver.
Right.
But if I say yes, then I'll do it.
Then you'll bleed for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Arlene has responsibility too, so I know that one quite well. Okay, so then includer. And what was the other two?
Relator.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I'll, if we're in a networking event, a lot of times I'll like look for the quiet person to talk to.
Is that the relator? That's probably more includer.
Yeah.
So you don't want anybody left out.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
See, I come to that because of connectedness. I just have, and I guess probably in input as well.
Yeah.
Because I want to know.
Ah, okay.
You know.
Yeah. So you're coming at it from like a knowledge, and I'm coming at it from a relationship.
Yeah, and that's actually true.
Yeah.
Paul has all of his strengths on the relator side or the relation side. If you can look those up, yeah. Which is really unique. All 5 are in the relationship category of the four. Wow. His top 5 anyway.
Yeah.
And then let's see.
And then positivity.
Positivity. You definitely have positivity. So mine are connectedness first.
Yeah.
Then maximizer. So the way I think about it is connectedness is my French side. That's Rochelle. Little rock is what it means. And then maximizer is my Germanic side. Input, ideation, and belief. So I have to really, really believe in the organization and the thing that I'm doing.
But once you're in, you're
once I'm in, I'm in. Yeah. Exactly.
What's ideation?
Ideation is just the ability to think on my feet and to think of solutions to problems.
Yeah.
So the maximizer part is doing it better every time, right? That's why your deal about early on, the thing that helped me to get over my worrying about what I look like on video or doing any of that stuff was just doing it. What do you say? How do you say it?
Do it scared.
Do it scared. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the doing it scared part is just to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And what I try to do is I try to do a 1-take video.
Yes.
Now, sometimes you can't. It's just there's like this introduction. I just can't keep all of it exactly the way that I want to say it in mind in order to do it that way.
Right.
But for most things, I have a general sense of what I want to say, and then I just let it come out the way it comes out. And most of the time it works. And the other part is that when you stumble, it makes it more authentic because then you don't have to be perfect in order to get a message over. And if you listen to speakers, unless they're reading a script, which makes the worst kind of speaker, the extemporaneous are the ones that really can touch you, right? They can get to your heart and bring it out and keep you going.
Well, when we pause to think, or when we pause right before a big story or a big reveal, I think it naturally builds tension. It naturally pulls the audience in, and then you create that connection with someone. Yeah, isn't it fascinating how like StrengthsFinder has, you leverage that for your business, and then I leverage it to help people build brand. It has so much wide appeal.
Yeah. Well, most of my introduction comes from a strengths exercise that I do with my clients. Because it basically helps you to, and matter of fact, on Paul's resume the other day, we were working on that together. It's just a way to succinctly say who you are in powerful emotional language so that people have they have a very good sense of who you are at that point.
Absolutely.
I've used it with law firms to help them to figure out how to talk to their customers or their prospective customers and better engage them as customers.
Yeah.
Because if you engage people with who you are and then say why you want to help them, that's more powerful than telling you how you're going to do anything. This is the old Simon Sinek thing, right?
Yeah.
Start with why.
Yeah.
So,
And it ties into personal branding because like I coach my clients to say, once you have your top 5 strengths, look through that report and like highlight sentences that speak to you. And then you can use those sentences on your website.
Right.
In the language you use when you do a video on your LinkedIn profile.
Because it's going to come out automatically without you even trying.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's you, right? It's your strength. And And because sometimes we have trouble finding the words.
Right.
And so that report that it generates,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like, oh, that's what that word was.
Yeah.
That speaks to me. Yeah.
The thing that I like to do with customers is to actually meet before we do a leadership program, to meet with each individual and go through their insight guide. So if you do the All 34 report, which gives you your top to bottom, that insight guide for your top 5 is phenomenal. It's instead of a 2-sentence description of who you are, it goes into paragraphs of and it really is like a 360-degree and maybe even a multi-level view of who you are through all your strengths, because it brings components that are correlated from your other strengths into that description. Absolutely. And it's really powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because, we were talking about it earlier, right? Like we're on this journey almost to find ourselves, right? And discover our strengths and our gifts. And so that report puts it into words that we can use.
Yeah.
I love it.
So let's go a little deeper. So in the experiences that you've had, have you ever run into a situation where you've had an issue with somebody because you were a female, and likewise because you're Asian, that you had to deal with personally?
It wasn't so much a conflict as a bias. So I still remember one client that had hired us for change management, and a lot of their users are male and in warehouse situations, right?
Okay.
They work in a warehouse and maintenance. And
so probably 95% of them are male.
Right.
Or more.
But the project management team specifically wanted female change management consultants because they felt like we would be less intimidating to the users. And so they would be more likely to adopt the change. And I never forgot that. And I was like, I didn't even know how to respond to that. Like, and first of all, for them to even like make that be a request is just ridiculous. But I have I don't know, I usually try not to let things like that bother me because I always say to people, like, if I want something, I'm just going to go after it. I'm not going to let the fact that you think I'm Asian or you think that I'm female stop me. I'll just go around you, or I'll leave.
Right.
Like, and so, and I went to school in an engineering environment,
which was 90% male.
Yeah, we were probably 80% male, 20% in civil engineering that I was in.
Okay.
And then again,
was this in Canada?
This was in Canada.
Okay.
University of Waterloo. Shout out to any alumni that might be out there. And then again in like aerospace and defense, and again in the technology SAP world.
Right.
I actually like turned that into an advantage because go ahead and underestimate me.
Right.
I love it because then I can prove you wrong.
Right.
And so I actually like thrive on it because it's almost like they underestimate me. So I'm going to go in and like knock you off your feet.
So it's never been a personal issue where you felt
I try not
disadvantaged.
To make it.
Okay.
I think the only kind of like episodes that I vividly remember is when I was like learning English, and I would be made fun of because I spoke with an accent.
Because you came over and you didn't speak English at all.
I didn't speak a word of English.
Wow.
And but I think because I was 6, so I lost my accent, I guess, because I was young enough.
Yeah.
But then now I'm like
6th grade or 6 kindergarten.
6 years old. Yeah. So that's grade 1.
Oh, grade 1. Okay.
Yeah. So that I have like a little bit of, bad memories of being made fun of, not speaking English. But otherwise, I either I just let it slide off me, or I'm like, let's go. I'm going to prove you wrong.
So you'll remember, because I think you did a lot of the video work for it, when we interviewed Sherry James and
yes,
a couple of other folks. I can't remember all the names at this point. But back when the Black Lives Matter thing was happening, we had a series at the Association for Business Technology Professionals, where we basically got them to tell stories about what they went through and what they felt about things. So none from your background, you didn't experience any of those kinds of things?
I mean, I've had people say things to me on the street. Like,
seriously?
Calling me a chink and like...
No way.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about Gary Vaynerchuk, because I learned something. He said something that always stuck with me. Gary's one of the influencers that I follow, huge entrepreneur. And, he said, hurt people hurt other people.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I try to use that to have empathy for someone that might want to hurt me. I mean, not in extreme situations.
I know what you mean.
But but if somebody has something nasty to say and they don't even know me, then I'm like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Like, what in your past makes you strike like that? And it's not about me.
Yeah.
So I try to brush off stuff like that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the positivity in me. I'm like, okay, you think that way. You're not in my life, so
goodbye.
Bye. And I've had times where, like, you have funny conversations where you're networking and somebody's they see that you're Asian, they see that I'm Asian, and they bring up like the one Asian friend that they know.
Oh, wow.
Like, do you know so and so? Or, oh, I have a friend that's Chinese, and they whatever. And I just kind of nod and listen. And
do you think they do that out of some sort of spite or something?
No,
or are they just,
I don't.
They're just trying. They're trying. Right?
They're trying in their way. Yes, and that's kind of how I frame my mind to think about it. And sure, there are people with evil intent or malicious intent, but I think for the most part, people just, they're trying. Right? And if you don't travel, if you don't expose yourself to different things, all you know is just what's in your little world.
Right.
And it's their way of trying.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I don't know.
Yeah. So I when I grew up, I was in a neighborhood in Houston, and I was very proud that my mother was German. And I didn't know that was a bad thing because my mom's German, right? So I had the whole fourth grade chasing me around, calling me a Nazi one day at recess. Because I had sang a song in German at an event or something. So kids
can be cruel.
Oh yeah, kids. I think
that's
kids
where
are
my trauma, I think, comes
but
from.
typically, to your point on hurt people, creating other hurt people, right? Usually they're learning it from somebody else too. So it is a cultural thing.
It is.
So I'm sensitive to that for others, but in the company that I keep,
Mm.
like you, right? We have a community that loves each other and takes care of each other and supports each other.
We do. Like, yeah.
So, and I think that's what we need to build more of.
Yes.
And by meeting with people from other faiths, other cultural backgrounds, every other,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Then that's what we need to do. It was Jordan Peterson says in his book, Growing the Next Version of You is kind of named after it. He says that you shouldn't measure yourself to any other, right?
Yeah.
But you should measure yourself to yourself yesterday,
Yeah.
to the old version of you. So I think that's a very powerful way to look forward and not to. And I applaud you for letting that kind of like roll off your shoulder and not getting upset about it and being a victor and not a victim, right? And
Life's too short.
I think you have that mentality for sure.
I just want to move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I believe in addressing things. In fact, like my sister is a counselor, and so she came to visit me just this week, and she does something called somatic therapy, which looks at how our bodies.
Somatic or
somatic, SOUV, somatic.
Okay.
Yeah, SOUMATIC.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a form of like tapping into things that we hold in our bodies that we don't even know.
Sure.
Like
energy,
pain points.
Bad energy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we carry a lot of that stuff and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
And she put me through a session and I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
did you feel some relief from that?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Like, and I think, your whole mission is about mind, body, and soul. Like, I think our body carries certain parts of our pain.
Most definitely. So Wim Hof thinks, you know who Wim Hof is? He's the cold therapy guy.
Okay.
He can get into cold water and warm his body up somehow through mind over body exercise that he does. But anyway, he thinks, and I got this from a Jordan Peterson interview of him, and that we have 1,000 generations of DNA in us, and that I don't know that he uses the word epigenetic, but the whole way that the body works, obviously genes are how we're created and how our cells are created, but the epigenetics, which are also shared from generation to generation. So he believes, and Jordan Peterson talks about this from a different perspective as well, more biological, that we can carry negative energy from our parents or from our predecessors.
Absolutely.
And I believe it.
I believe it too.
Yeah.
Like, my grandfather in China was a doctor, and he was in the midst of the Cultural Revolution.
Oh boy.
And so they locked up a lot of the professionals,
doctors,
right? Like knowledgeable, educated people.
People had gone to education, yeah.
And so they locked him up in like a hospital room during that time, during the Cultural Revolution. And then they sent my mom to a farm to work in China. And I think it created this whole society of people that were like hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
And like anxious.
Yeah.
And worried about everything. And so like growing up, that comes down to me.
Sure.
Right? Like, you can never almost relax. Like you can't, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you, have you got this mark at school? Well, why didn't you get this mark? And like, so there was all this like hypervigilance. And so I almost feel like the older I get, it's a process of unlearning all that. I can totally relate to this. I'm sure the German culture, right? Yeah. Like this sense of like everything needs to be perfect and I think it's because we came from this like history of like uncertainty and fear, and so now it's like, okay, let's relax a little. We don't need to be this hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
You know, luckily we live in a first world country, and like we're not strapped for food and all that, but like there's a whole, I think, and that was embedded in our bodies.
Yeah, no, I totally understand it. I have some experience with that as well. In 2010, a very traumatic event happened to me personally. I won't go into it here, but it happened. And I have a friend, her name is Suzanne, and she used to live here in Dallas. She now lives up in Oregon, I think. And her grandmother was an Irish seer. And I don't know exactly all what that means, but what it means for her is that when she saw me after that traumatic event had happened, she said that I can tell, because when her grandmother passed, she kind of started getting this ability as well. And she could see pain and she could see things. And she said that there was something that was stuck on my right side in my abdomen that she could see. And would I be interested in talking about it? Well, back then, this is 2010, I'm like, no,
right.
I don't know what that means. I don't want to, exactly.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that.
Right.
Well, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something, I called her finally, because I'm like, what were you talking about? Because
so it stuck with you though.
Yeah, exactly. Were you there at ABTP when David Rosenthal spoke?
I don't remember that.
He's a chiropractor, but he also has a master's in functional neurology. And I knew David when we were both freshmen together in our undergraduate, right? So I've known him, and I've known David 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. And I think I can say the same for me. I continue to try to grow as much as I can every day, right? So I've known him through many phases of his life, and he put my left shoulder together when I wrecked it on a mountain bike thing back in his PT and chiropractic days. Okay. And then after he did his master's in neurology, I had trouble with my right shoulder. And I went back to him, and he treated me, but he didn't touch it much. And at first I was really bothered by that, because I'm thinking, I remember all the pain that he gave me on this left shoulder, trying to get it back and everything. And I have 360 degrees of motion and no pain in that shoulder anymore. And he got the same result through talking to me about what was going on and giving me exercises to do, like looking in a mirror and moving my left shoulder up and down in the motion that I needed to move it on my right shoulder, but put the mirror where it looks like that shoulder is the one that's doing it.
Interesting.
And it fixed it, right? So it was just a different modality in which he used it. But he also was saying there's something going on with your right intestines and things like that. So he was talking about that, and that's what made me think, oh, that girl, that lady that I know said something like 10 or 11 years ago. Right. So I talked to her, and lo and behold, basically through some meditation and things like that, that whole thing went away. But it was knowledge of the fact that we carry things with us that hurt us in our subconscious, and that our body will actually create pain so that we don't go there.
So we don't
go there. Now, this is something that Arlene read through. There's a Dr. Sarno, and I don't remember the name of his book anymore. So anyway, all these things are coming together, and it's really fabulous how we work. Yeah. Right? We are energy beings.
We really are.
Right? So that whole mind, body, spirit, the mind is the part that is directing at some level, but we have a subconscious that is sometimes working against us. Yes. And we have to work through those things, sometimes through therapy, sometimes through physical modalities, sometimes through working out. And, there are different things for different people. it's a powerful way of overcoming generational issues,
Yes.
right? And fears and pains and things.
So look up, somatic therapy.
I'll look at that.
It was amazing. Like she did it on me, and it was just like.
So was it just a mental exercise, or was it partially physical?
It was noticing. No, you don't move at all. You just sit or lay there, and then you're asked to notice where you feel discomfort. And from there, she just leads you through an exercise to notice things.
Okay.
And ask why or what or what are you feeling that moment.
Okay.
And all that. And I swear the last few days I've slept really, really well. That's
awesome.
Yeah. So it's all connected. And I do believe, I still remember one quote you said, Mike, about you follow people's energies.
Yeah.
Right? And then you become friends with people if you like their energy, right? And I really believe in that too.
Well, yeah, it's positivity. So you have that in spades, authentically, right? It's a part of who you are. But when people are giving into a community and loving people that they don't know, it's noticeable, and there is a powerful energy there, regardless of whether you think that comes from the universe or you think that comes from God or whatever you want to say. That energy is infectious. And combined with others that have that same level of energy, then you can do great things on no budget, as you know, right? Like we do at ABTP.
And I think that ties back to like why when we do video or when we put ourselves out there, I mean, I've been, touch wood, I've been lucky that I haven't had too many trolls and negativity.
Right.
And sometimes I wonder if it's because I don't talk about that stuff. I'm not
right.
Like I don't want to create something argumentative in my content.
Right.
I'm just there to encourage.
Or be negative about anything.
Yeah, I'm just there to encourage others to get on video and all that. And so I think those that don't like that, they just scroll on by. Right. And that's fine with me.
Okay, so.
Oh, yeah. So we put out, I think because I don't put out the negativity, then I don't attract the negativity. Right. Or at least I like to hope so.
Right.
And because I'm out there encouraging people to get on video and be positive. And so I usually attract those kind of people to my community, my network. So I haven't really had to fight as many fights.
That's good. Yeah. I very seldom get a troll. If it happens, I don't think it's happened very often. Yeah. But like you, I learned in the early Facebook days that engaging people in that banter back and forth is just a non-productive waste of time. Because you're never going to change anybody's mind. Yeah. Especially if you're using different terminology. Yeah. And it's just it's laborious to do it with somebody that really doesn't want to have a real conversation. No. Right. And that's the point. Because a real conversation says, so I think of compassion in this way, and this is my definition of compassion. What do you think compassion is, right? And then when you describe your version of what it is, then we can determine where we might be missing each other. But if you can't have that exchange of language where you say, I think that it means this, what do you think it means? Then there's not a chance for real dialogue.
Or we enter into the conversation with no goal of trying to convince the other people. Right. It's just I'd like to hear what you think. Right. But I'm not here to convince you to think what I think.
Which is very difficult.
Right? Yeah.
At least it is for me.
I mean, the only thing like on LinkedIn now and then is just like you get some creepy guys that like will send just not appropriate messages.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, now and then.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like block, report, like
Yeah, that must go with the territory because I've never had a creepy guy message yet.
Or maybe a creepy girl message.
Yeah, I haven't had one of those either. But yeah.
You've had them on Instagram. I've had to, whenever I went through, whenever you gave me your phone last night to do something.
Oh, Instagram's nasty.
You now the filters, you already have a filter to where it filters out those, or like you have to accept the DMs or direct messages. There was like five fake accounts, like just talking about give me money and
Oh, seriously?
Or like just even like asking, just like saying like obviously fake stuff just to try to, to corrupt you, but it was just nasty.
Instagram's a little notorious.
Yeah, so Paul was correcting me. He was saying that I have some nefarious activity on my Instagram account, but I wasn't aware of that. I just got into Instagram just a little while ago just to kind of catch up with Paul and his buddies. So thank you for looking at that, Paul. I appreciate it. So anyway, so I think I still, is as destructive as some of the political activity has been on social media. I think if you're a thoughtful, emotionally secure person, that's a big if, that it's still a net positive. Don't you?
I do.
I mean,
like about social media?
Yeah, social media just in general as a topic.
I think so. I mean, Gary V, if I may quote him again, like he basically says social media just amplifies who you are.
Yeah.
So if you're already prone to be a certain way, then social media is just going to amplify that.
Right.
Positive and negative.
Yeah.
And that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. My rule right now for myself is my mother told me that if you don't have something good to say, don't say it. Right. Everybody has some version of that kind of thing. And I think that's a good rule. It's just like, just don't be an ass.
Yeah.
and things will be fine.
I do want to ask you a question, Mike.
Sure.
Because, in this content creation journey, I come across people that feel like they're too old to be on social media, or old, quote unquote old.
Yeah.
Because, or like I'm a Gen X and social media is for millennials and Gen Ys and Gen Zs, and I'd love to get your take on that, because I've had everything from, I have white hair, so maybe I shouldn't put a photo of me with white hair because I may not get that job, to, I can give presentations to hundreds of people, but I don't want to be on video. Like, what would you say to that? Because I'm always curious as to, because you've kind of gone through your own journey, right? Of getting on video, now you're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
What would you say to people that think they're too old to be creating content?
So let's see. Paul, when did we meet with Brad Cope? No, it was Charles Crouch. Was that last Saturday? I think it was last Saturday. He and I talked, and I mentioned a teacher that Paul had who has now retired. She was Paul's teacher. She was Michael's teacher, and she was Erica's. Yeah, it was last Saturday. And I was trying to remember a quote that she gave me. Now she retired from Oklahoma school districts with full pension, and then moved down here and started teaching again because she just loved teaching kids. Right. So I'm going to guess, and I don't want to give her age, but I'm going to guess that she's in her 7th, close to 8th generation. Okay. So I quoted her on my podcast just the other day. Right. And I asked her about something that she taught the kids when they were it was 2nd grade, Paul, or 3rd grade? 3rd grade. So this is already 10 years ago that she was doing this, 10 to 20 years ago, because Michael was the first one to go through. And she taught them this statement, and I'll tell you what it is first, because I think it's really powerful. And then I'm going to tell you who wrote it. And this is the answer to your question. So the thing is, watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, for they become your actions. Watch your actions, for they become your habits. Watch your habits, because they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. Now, I asked her who wrote it, because I remember it from, they had presentations that they did for parents all the time, and they actually rehearsed this to us. So because we did it 3 times, I remembered it, right? And that has nothing to do with age. But the point is that Lao Tzu is probably the one that wrote this, and that's going to be 800 BC. So I would basically say that to those that are afraid to share their authentic self and the wisdom that they developed over a lifetime, you're just a kid. It doesn't matter if you're 70 or 80 or 60 or 100, compared to Lao Tzu, who almost 3,000 years ago wrote this. And this statement is true. It doesn't matter who wrote it, right? I mean, I believe this with all my heart. It is truth, right? And this truth has been attributed to Churchill, and I think to Thatcher, and to a bunch of different people who were basically just repeating what they had learned from somebody else. And that teacher, who'd been, a teacher for 40 years probably, shared that with my kids, and it impacted me because I got to hear it multiple times. So
and we benefited from it.
We benefit from wisdom.
Yes.
Right?
That's passed down.
That's right. So the gray hair, and I have a little bit right now.
I color mine.
My hairdresser asked me if she wants me to, and I'm like, I'm not going to mess with it. But the point is that gray hair gives you the ability to share the things that you've learned and the experiences that you have, and really experiences are the killer app of this century. Because if you had experience and you can apply it, you may use different words, right? So for those who are afraid to speak, just listen on other videos and find out what the lingua franca is, right? How people are describing things. Maybe update your language from time to time, but share it. You have experience, and that's something that you can do that's more powerful than somebody that's younger than you.
I love it.
So how about that?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the older we get, and the more I think we shouldn't, I know this sounds kind of morbid, but like we shouldn't leave this earth without saying it.
Right. Well, let's go to ethics. So one of the things that we talk about at the association is business ethics, right? So that is something that you have embraced. What do you think about ethics and how it applies to business? And obviously how it applies to content and creation.
I think ultimately we are our word. And I guess it's that responsibility strengthened me. Like when we say something, I think we carry it out.
Right.
That builds trust, that connects people. And if we don't, then it just erodes us, our relationships, and society and community as a whole.
Yeah.
Right? And I find that if I show up better, even though I'm flawed right? Or at least in my pursuit of being better,
Right.
then everybody else will hopefully be better along the journey as well, right? Like I see more and more on LinkedIn, like people sharing their journeys
Mm-hmm.
and their mistakes and people embracing that. Like
Right.
some of the more popular posts nowadays are somewhat personal and somewhat tied to work.
Right.
And those make for hugely popular posts. Because I think people, especially coming out of the pandemic, people don't want robots anymore. People don't want perfection anymore. People want realness.
Real,
Right?
authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, like tell me your struggle.
Something to help them to overcome
Yeah.
whatever they're dealing with.
Let me feel like I'm not alone.
Right.
Let me feel like I'm not the only flawed person in the room.
Right.
Right? Like, and then we connect through that.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, let's solve this together.
Right.
Or let's go on this journey together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that kind of realness, that kind of values or ethics,
Right.
I think that's what's going to
Yeah.
change the world. And
Yeah.
and social media and digital platforms allow us to do that on scale.
Exactly.
Right? Like before, I would just know you and maybe the ABTP platform, like
Right.
group of community.
Right.
But now we get to broadcast it. We get to share everything online that we want
Right.
to share. And somebody, I think the other day, yes, people tune into ABTP from India, from the
Right.
Caribbean. Like we've seen it all.
Right.
China, we get to reach
India.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
I hope that answers the question.
It does. It does, definitely. So one of the final topics that we had today was to kind of talk about who influences us, and that kind of introduces one of my heroes, which is Jordan Peterson. And what he talks about is that our myths, our cultural icons of the past, our characters of heroes from the mystical past are all part of the evolutionary chain that allows us to grow as a group of people. So I'm choosing my language very carefully because he talks a lot about biblical stories, but he is also a follower of Jung. So he talks about the things from psychology, from biology, and the myths. And they're powerful, right? And the reason they're powerful, and this goes back to your question about this person that's asking, am I too old to do it? Well, the old stories from the past, from Peterson's perspective, from a evolutionary biology perspective, are nothing more than the stories that articulate the best that humanity has been able to articulate regarding behavior that is positive, that is building, that is good for people to grow with, right? So he doesn't really talk about virtue ethics as much, but it's very much the stories that support the stories that virtue ethics talk about. Every people group, every religion, every spiritual tradition, they love to love, right?
Yeah.
They enjoy joy.
Yeah.
They think about compassion as a way of being, right? They enjoy getting things done, right? There are certain ways, and I don't have to go through the whole list of virtues, but the point is that they kind of encompass all the best that humanity has been able to describe, and it transcends all the boundaries that get in our way, right? So that we can sit here as a German Texan speaking to a Chinese Canadian American, right? I'm also American too, but I throw Texas in there because we were a republic, and there's something to that. We can always secede.
Oh my God.
No, I'm serious. In our Constitution, it says it. So anyway.
whole other
That's
conversation.
that's just partially in jest. But the point is, it's a partially, because if you look it up, you'll find out that we could. Um, but it
Things that we disagree on.
yeah.
It's okay.
Well, I'll show you. I'll share with you the document that actually says it. So anyway, but we can transcend all of those boundaries and enjoy doing things that are positive in society together. Another of my influencers is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has single-handedly brought the ability to have a real dialogue back to America. I mean, he's been doing his podcast for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Well,
yes.
So think about it, right?
Yes.
He has, then that's why this is a long format show. I don't necessarily say we're only going to go for 20 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour. Right. We're going to go as long as we need to have the conversation and or need to go pick up kids at school. We both have that situation today, so we're trying to juggle that. Yeah. So, but it allows you to have a longer conversation that gets further into conversation about different topics and such like that. So I really enjoy that. There are things that he says that I can't believe he says, right? But there is freedom of speech in the United States, and he can say whatever he blank wants to, right? And he often does. And that's kind of his style, right? And that's fine. It's provocative. But he, unlike anybody I know, he will have a guy on. I cannot remember the name of either person. One of them was from A&M, and the other guy was a PhD from somewhere else. And they talked about the ecology, about whether we were really warming or changing the climate or whatever. And he had one guest one week that was we're not changing it, and it's not going to make a big enough difference for us to spend these billions of dollars we are. And he was very articulate in his message. And then the very next week, there was the professor from A&M that basically said that guy was bought and paid for by the chemical, oil industry many years ago in his career. And these are the facts that I see as the truth about, but behind climate change. And it's the same host. He's not taking a position one way or the other. I think he's open, and I've seen him change, which is, I think, the right thing, right? Because when you actually dig into a topic and understand it at a level that, your guests are speaking for 3 or 4 hours on, that should change you, because there's a depth in that's powerful.
There's also a limit in what we know.
Yeah.
Right? And so I know this amount, but then through a conversation, I might know this.
That's right.
And so now I have to look at this bigger amount of information to decide whether I still hold firm to my position or not.
Yeah.
Right?
He had a 4-hour conversation with Mark Andreessen. And Mark Andreessen, for those who remember, was the founder of, and I can't remember the name, Netscape. And Mosaic, the first browser.
Netscape.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was a blast from the past, but that guy is really thoughtful. And I really enjoyed that conversation. So anyway, that's why I like Joe Rogan. I think he brings interesting people on, and they go into a great depth in various conversations. So it's great. And then Lex Fridman, what I learned from him is to prepare more for your conversations. He just had a 5-hour conversation. I can't remember the guy's name. He was the founder of id Software. So I don't know if you ever saw Doom or Wolfenstein or Quake.
No.
All guys would know that are my age. They were early video games.
Okay.
They were the first 3D video games, and he talks at
Dune
length.
is in the Dune movie? Or that same reference?
Doom. No, Doom.
Oh, Doom. Oh, okay.
It was a single person shooter thing.
Okay.
But he did tricks with what the technology could do at the day that allowed it to be a really powerful experience for mostly young men. I happened to do that myself in my early career even. But anyway, that was a fascinating conversation too. So Lex Fridman brings something to the art where he is really fully engaged in what the person has done at a level and kind of raises the bar. So that's why I've kind of pushed you a little bit into some areas that we hadn't prepped for on purpose. And I think you even said, maybe by doing it live, it's more authentic. So I think there's power for something.
There is, because then you can't really filter what you're going to say, because it's like a live recording. You're not going to do a retake or anything like that. And even now, like I'm switching over to like live streams are my pillar content from
Right.
which everything else gets repurposed.
Yeah.
Because I've watched too many consultants and other people that I work with like stumble on pre-recorded videos when if you stick them in front of a room to present something, they're
They'll
so
go,
articulate and
right.
they're so like smart and knowledgeable, but then you like aim a camera on them and
they stop.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, forget about pre-recorded. Let's just go live.
Yeah.
And then cut from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of different things, ways to think of. That's what my original perspective was to do live for that reason.
Yeah.
But I went ahead and went recorded because I want guests to feel comfortable that if they say something
It's
that
still,
they don't want out,
ongoing.
that they don't want out there, that it's not recorded, it's
ongoing.
not been broadcast, and that kind of thing. So far, we've only, out of 3 recordings, we've only had one thing that we had to cut. So that's pretty good. And I self-filter as I'm speaking anyway. That's if I pause, that's what I'm doing. I'm just thinking of, okay, how do I say this in the context of what we're saying? So I'm not worried about it, but we'll still do that. And then we'll live premiere, right? So it's a little bit different thing, but
all good.
Very cool. So the last influencer that I have, and I quote him quite often. I actually share quotes with you and others that are in my tighter circle of influence from Richard Rohr quite a bit. Richard Rohr is a Catholic priest out of Albuquerque. Sorry, I was thinking of Santa Fe, but it's not. He's in Albuquerque, and he has a daily email that comes out, and he really helps to broaden me. He has, I think, 2 PhDs and a bunch of master's degrees. He's written 50 or 60 books, and he's really a mind-blowing guy. So I like.
Look it up.
Yeah, I don't think he does. He does. He'll do recorded broadcasts. I've seen a lot on YouTube. He's on YouTube a lot. So if you're interested, I can give you some of the titles that are good to start with him.
How has he influenced you?
So I come from a Protestant Christian perspective, right?
Okay.
And I grew up in an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists, which was a Sabbatarian group.
Oh.
So we did the Sabbath, Friday night, sundown to Saturday.
My grandparents are that.
Are they really?
Yes.
Ah, okay. So there's another connection. So that's how I grew up in that. My parents are still there, my brother and a lot of my family. But that takes you a certain path, right? And I don't know, probably 15 or 20 years ago, I started reading the mystics like Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross. And they're mostly Catholic because back in that day, that was the only church, right? They're really ancient. So writers are ancient from our perspective, 16th century, and then before that, I think, with St. John the Cross. And the church fathers, which were all Catholic, because at that, like I said, before the Reformation, there were no other Christians. Although you may take some of the history, there were multiple splits. But anyway, they talk about experience with God more than just doing things because you're told to do so. And I think I've shared with you the self-transcendent stuff that I talk about at the beginning of this the Senior Leadership Forum with the Association of Business Technology Professionals. So I've had some experiences myself, and I'm interested in that kind of talk. So he's a mystic's mystic, and studied a lot of the mystics over the ages. He is I don't know, significantly more liberal than I am,
Uh-huh.
right? Which I think it's beholden on you to listen to people that think differently than you,
Yeah.
right, on a regular basis. And he challenges me almost every week on something that he says, but I'm learning from him things that I would never have thought, and I value that.
Yeah.
Right, because it's still in the camp, if you will, but it's challenging. And he also teaches on the Enneagram, which is an old personality profile.
I keep on hearing about that.
You need to take
Try
it, and if you're interested, I'll give you my my assessment. It is it opens you to things, because basically what it does is you're one of 9 personality traits on a wheel, and then whatever you are, I'm a number 8, which is a controller. Okay, active controller, I think is the name that the particular assessment that I took calls it. I've seen it called other things, but it's number 8, whatever that means. And then on either side is a 7 and a 9. And so those are your wings. So you can kind of flex into those pretty easily. You flex over. And then right across from whatever number you are is where you go when you're happy. And I don't remember what mine is. It's number 4. And then there's one that's down at the bottom for me, because I'm an 8, which is nearly at 9, right? So right up. And that one is the one where you go when you're anxious, or when you're hurt, or whatever, or you're angry.
Interesting.
And that one is the one that you have to watch out for, right? So from a strengths perspective, it's sort of the what you are is what you are, but the one is your balcony behavior. So if you've heard that from Gallup, there's balcony behavior and there's basement behavior within a strength.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people that know us think of our strength as a weakness because we're overplaying the hand, or because we're using basement behavior to express that strength. So think of the boss that yells at people.
Yeah.
Right? They want to get things done.
Right.
So they're a driven person. I'm not going to name the personality strength, because but there are those that could be that. I can be that with the maximizer if I am in my worst place. Right? But what I choose to live is the peaceful, loving, caring person that I want to be. Right? And that I was made to be.
Yeah.
So then you just have to watch out for that behavior. So that's what Enneagram does. And they actually talk of it in language of sin. And so it's challenging for some that are not necessarily spiritual, right?
Yeah.
But it's worth doing.
Okay.
Because
I've heard about it several times, so I'm very curious.
The other thing that I find interesting, a lot of Christian groups use it, but it actually started in the 6th century, and it was Muslim scholars that created it. So it's a universal truth. It's not something that was created just by Christians. But he teaches on it and has written several books on it and stuff like that. So that's the other part of him that I like. So we could go on with my influencers, but let's talk about yours. So who is influencing you with you can think of this either at work or at home, and tell us which one you're kind of thinking.
It's a whole variety. I mean, recently, right now I'm taking a business boot camp with Chris Do, who's also on my live show recently. And so he's been influencing me a lot. He comes from an agency side, so he combines business with creativity, and I just love that. Obviously, Gary Vaynerchuk, I listen to him a lot. But as far as like maybe somebody that...
What is Vaynerchuk's perspective again? What is his...
He's all about getting out there and creating.
Okay.
And document the journey. And share your journey.
Okay.
And in the last few years, he's really drilled into the importance of empathy and patience in building your entrepreneurial journey. Because he thinks that people just rush into it
and then they give up
to make $1 million in 6 months or something.
That's not happening.
And so it's about patience, putting in the work, and then leading with empathy.
Okay.
So I love all that.
That's awesome.
But if I were to like pick somebody that I would want to be almost, there'd be two people. One would be Sarah Blakely, who is the founder of Spanx.
Yeah, I've seen her.
And she kind of exemplifies to me what it's like to be a female founder and CEO, and everything that is innately female.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, not a lot of guys running around in Spanx.
No.
I hope.
But like she reached, I think, $1 billion in valuation recently or something.
Seriously?
And I think some company, I'm going to get my facts all wrong, but some company bought hers and she announced it. And in her announcement, I'll never forget it. It was announced on Instagram. She had this announcement. She called all her employees into the room and shared with them her success and said, you know, I started off selling fax machines.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am now at this valuation. But she didn't, and she said, and I want to thank all of you, my employees, and I would like to give all of you first class tickets to anywhere in the world as my thank you to you.
Yeah.
And then along with that, since you're already going to be there, you need some spending money. I'm going to give you all $10,000 as well as your spending money.
Nice.
And so like, it shows to me that she reached the top, right? This huge pinnacle, and she didn't forget about the people along the way. She's very giving, and she wanted to share her success.
Yeah.
And she's out there like openly crying and feeling and like, and I love that. Like, I think I'm a feeler, I'm a emotional person, like, you know, and I feel things deeply, and like to watch somebody that is so successful and still be so real.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, and so that, and then recently she was, I think, featured on Fortune or some kind of magazine, and she chose to wear like a pink sweater. And her thing on her Instagram was like, you know, something along the lines of, you know, I'm in Fortune, so you would think that I should be in a suit or something, but I'm going to wear my pink sweater. And I love that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just because I think for the longest time, like, you know, you go through those Arthur Anderson, and like we were like in either black or navy jackets and suits, and like there was a whole dress code.
Closed toe shoes and the hose.
And so here's this leader that's being fully female and woman and succeeding and just unapologetic.
Awesome.
Right? And then the other person is Brene Brown. She changed my whole perspective of the power of vulnerability. Like, have you ever seen Brene Brown's TED Talk?
Mm-mm.
It's probably one of the most popular TED Talks out there, and it's about the power of vulnerability.
Send me a link to it if you would. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. And so she changed my whole perspective about needing to be perfect, but instead being real and authentic.
It's Brene Brown.
Brene Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, she is a researcher out of Houston. She wrote books like The Gifts of Imperfection. Her recent book is kind of like a collection, Atlas of the Heart. It's a bestseller. And she just talks about all these things, about courage, about being imperfect, and having that be okay.
Yeah.
And I just love that, and succeeding at being that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So those are kind of my influencers.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Fanny, it looks like Paul's already brought your thing up. Thanks, Paul. If you would like to keep in touch with Fanny, just go to https://www.linkedin.com/in/Fanny Dunagan, DUNAGAN /, and you can keep up with her on LinkedIn. You could probably just put in Fanny Dunagan and find her too. But
I'm the only Fanny Dunagan.
yeah, are you the only one?
Yeah, especially an Asian one.
One of a kind. Yeah, there are hundreds of Mike Rochelles. I couldn't believe it. My son and I were creating his account the other day, Michael Rochelle, and we saw trying to find the name and a thing that would be unique was challenging. Yeah. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming out. Paul, can you put up the, so if you'd like to learn more about growing the next version of you online classes, go to www.leadershipinthinkific.com. Right now, there are a couple of them out there, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks, Fanny, very much for coming out. This has been a fabulous conversation.
Likewise.
Honestly, it's been very good. So thanks, and look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye, y'all.